Hello and welcome to episode lucky number 13 of Hyperlegible. Today, I'm talking to Brie Wolfson about her piece, Flounder Mode, which is one of my favorite titles of any of the pieces that we've covered on Hyperlegible. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and say it's my favorite title of any piece that we've covered so far on Hyperlegible. Flounder Mode is ostensibly a profile on Kevin Kelly, who we go into his background in the piece. If you haven't heard of him, he's one of my favorite writers, but writer doesn't capture what he does. He's a futurist. He's building a clock in a mountain. He's somewhat of a guru in Silicon Valley, not by his own design, but just by the way that people respond to the things that he writes and what he puts out into the world. Now, the piece is a profile, but so much of it is about Brie's career and her own career, kind of living in Flounder Mode, jumping from curiosity to curiosity, the struggles that come kind of internally from having a career like that. I know that I've certainly felt that way, and we talk about that a lot in the conversation. I think the most beautiful piece about this profile to me is that there's not actually a lot of direct Kevin Kelly in there. There are certainly a few quotes, and there's some amazing, beautiful pictures that you need to go check out on the Colossus website or by buying the print edition of the magazine. But really, the piece is more about his impact on Brie and impact on those of us who live in Flounder Mode, which I think is just such a beautiful tribute to the impact that he's had on so many people. Before we get to my conversation with Brie, I want to tell you about our longtime sponsor of Hyperlegible. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, it's Readwise. Readwise makes the best software for reading on the internet. I use it every single day. I save something to Readwise Reader. I go there, I highlight it. You can ask it questions. You can do this with essays, with PDFs. You can even put YouTubes in and they'll pull the transcript and you can read them that way. If you read things on the internet and you actually want to retain the things that you're reading, you need to try Readwise. Readwise is also, through our partnership, building a site, readwise.io/hyperlegible, that we update every time we have a conversation with both the conversation itself and the essays that the conversation is based on. You can find them all in one place at readwise.io/hyperlegible. That's readwise.io/hyperlegible. You'll find essays there, and I'm not even going to do the full list this time because we're on episode 13, but from recent ones with Mario Gabriel, from older ones with Tina He, and now my conversation with Brie Wolfson on Flounder Mode. Brie, welcome to Hyperlegible. I want to start with a question that I think is probably on a lot of people's mind, which is how did you come up with the title Flounder Mode? Because it's so good.
Oh man, all credit to the editing team on that one. We had something that was more descriptive and more boring. And I forget someone made a joke that was like, we should call this Flounder Mode. And then it was kind of like the code name that sticks sort of thing. And we were like, we can't do it. What, are you going to put a picture of Kevin Kelly next to something that says Flounder Mode? He's like the most prolific, successful person on this earth. And then the more we sat with it, the more we were like, I think we just got to do it.
I loved it. What was the original boring title?
Something with a pun around a pilgrimage.
Not as memorable.
Not memorable.
Amazing. For those who aren't familiar with Kevin Kelly, you give a great description of kind of all of the weird things that he's done in his life. Can you give us an overview of who Kevin Kelly is and what he's done?
Yeah, Kevin Kelly is one of those people that if you are appealing, or if you are watching the movie of history playing, he's like always in the front row, but he's never in the center of the screen. So he's been part of projects like Long Now, which is an institution focused on long-term thinking that is building a clock that's going to tick for 10,000 years into the side of a canyon in Texas, I think. And other collaborators on this project include Brian Eno, Jeff Bezos, Stuart Brand, like all kinds of different folks. He inspired the death clock on Futurama. He was a tech advisor on Minority Report. He started Wired Magazine, which is perhaps what he's most famous for. He cataloged all living species in a project that's now owned by Smithsonian. So anyway, he has just influenced many, many different flavors of people at peak culture in all of their domains.
It's amazing. And you're the perfect person to interview him, as I think kind of comes out throughout the piece and to profile him. But you have a bit of a Kevin Kelly-esque career yourself. I'm going to go over a little bit of it. If you haven't yet, people who are listening right now, gone to briewolfson.com. It is a treasure trove. I loved the Kool-Aid factory that you worked on. I love Stripe Press, which you helped get off the ground. I obviously love what you're doing at Positive Sum and Colossus, including this piece. There's just like so much more on the website. I didn't know that you were on The Moth. I didn't know that you wrote 2 novels. And then also, recently I had Kate Hall on the podcast, and I blame her for a little bit of the discourse today around one of the 2 traits that everybody must have, which is agency. You're responsible, I think, for bringing taste into the discourse through your essay, Notes on Taste. It's a lot of stuff. Like, what are your favorite highlights of your career? And then what are some things that I missed?
Oh man, my favorite highlights of my career. There's so many. So I joined Stripe on the account management team, which I don't think is a role that many people think is like full of creatives. At Stripe, it happened to be. And it didn't take me long working at Stripe to start getting tapped for funky kinds of projects. The first one was to welcome a recent acquired team into the company from like a cultural perspective. And what that actually meant was just like going to their office, which was like a hole in the wall in the hate, with pizza boxes stacked up to the gill, like kind of what you would picture from a startup's office. And that was really my first taste of like, there's just all this work that lives in the crannies. It doesn't seem like it should be owned by anyone in particular. So I was always just like, why not me? So I've had lots of those throughout my career.
What about you is it, do you think, that made them choose you to do that in the first place, and that is you've put yourself in this position to be in a lot of these types of kind of roles and situations? What is it about you?
I think it's just that I like it, and I'm kind of just down. I get bored easily, so actually a good like retention policy with me is to just give me these odd projects. I also think, and hopefully some of this comes out in the piece, I think they're also kind of like distracting. You know, these are like, it's not the main thing. It's like not the company's like top line required thing to like launch a book publisher or like sit in this team's office. So I think if you're really focusing on like impact and what's going to really move the needle for the company, you say no to all this stuff so that you have room for other things. So I think I'm just a weirdo that says yes.
How did Stripe Press come about in the first place? Because you say that it's a thing that you like wouldn't do if you wanted to advance your career and all of that, but it's one of the things that Stripe is like most well known for now, and so it'd be a travesty if that hadn't started. How'd that come about?
Yeah, that's nice to say. I can say this now because it's far back in history, but I'm pretty sure Patrick Collison incepted me that it was my idea when in fact it was his all along. But basically what became Stripe Press's first book, which is Elad Gil's High Growth Handbook, it landed in John Collison's lap as like a reader. And John was like, what if we publish this and gave it to all of our customers? And Elad was like, okay. Cause I think he's also a guy that says yes to a lot. And my project was to see how we can print a book and sell it on Amazon. At the end of that project, I was like, I think we've done most of the work to publish the next one. Like all we have to do is find the writing, but like Amazon set up and we have a new entity that allows us to sell physical goods that Stripe never had before. So should we try it again? And again, this was not my idea. So Tyler Cowan was one of the next authors. And when we approached him for the book, he was like, oh, finally, you're going to do this. Patrick and I have been talking about it forever. I was like, what the heck? But anyway, like good leaders made me feel like it was my idea.
That's great. I actually had, I worked at a startup before this, but before Not Boring, I had the High Growth Handbook in my apartment. So thank you for the little influence that you had on getting me here. You mentioned this and you write about it, and I'm going to read it because I think it's a feeling that a lot of people have had. You said, and then I'm not sure when the switch flipped, but I started to have a sinking feeling that I had it all wrong the whole time. I looked around and I felt I was being outpaced by my colleagues, specifically by the MBAs and the people who chase titles, promotions, money, and building teams. And it wasn't just a vanity thing. They genuinely seemed to be focused on bigger, more interesting problems. They were having more impact. They were mentoring young talent, influencing top lines and bottom lines, which I love. That's a great line. And had their fingerprints on all kinds of cool industry recognized work. They seemed to always have invitations to exclusive gatherings and job offers in their inbox. Several started companies, and rumor had it that some had term sheets before investors even opened their decks. I didn't only feel jealous of their work. I felt unqualified to do it. That stung. So that line, I didn't only feel jealous of their work. I felt unqualified to do it. Hit me hard too. Like when I read it, because I was like, oh, I like certainly recognize that. I mean, even some of the stuff that you're doing at Colossus, I'm like, damn, that's really good. And I don't think that I could do that. How do you get over that feeling?
my like stomach is churning as you read that passage because it's so real to me still. I don't know. I don't know how old you are or how long you've been doing this, but something that's characterized my late 30s has been just realizing that some doors are closed to me. Like my 20s was like, I could do anything, whatever, I'll do it. And now it's like, no, actually, now some people have had decades plus of experience doing something. It'd be a little late to get in the game. So I don't think I'm doing anything about it. I think I'm just trying to find comfort with some doors having closed.
Do you find though that there's a lot of doors that are open to you that are not open to other people?
One project that I'm working on right now is a book for people who are in the first 5 years of their careers. And I've been talking to a lot of these folks about like what their questions are for their careers. And one of them is, should I try to get internet famous? It's a big one. At first I was like, what? What does that even mean? I don't know. No, go do your job. And then I started to realize that actually just kind of being like a known person, or at least having a public record of your work, is helpful. I don't know if this opens doors, but I think it like maybe is like WD-40 on the handle. That I've like been publishing stuff online for about maybe 5 or 10 years now. So maybe someone has seen my name before and like has a general sense of the way I think. That's the only thing I can think of, but it's certainly not because of my skills.
It's so funny. I mean, I think there is this like weird public versus private or personal perception thing. Cause like, I don't know, when I see your name, I'm like, oh, that's the person who has it like figured out. Or when I saw that you were joining Positive Some Colossus, I was like, oh, damn, that's like a really good hire. I wish I had met her before and done this. So do you think this is in your head? A lot of this, that doors are closed? Like, cause I'm only digging because I think a lot of people really do feel this. And I feel this sometimes too. So I'm just trying to go deep on it.
No, I don't think it's in my head. I'm sure it's not, because my friends and my cohorts, they are in CRO roles. They are in heads of roles. I can't get those jobs anymore. I don't think they are a good fit for me. When I'm really listening to myself, I don't like managing people that much. I don't like big orgs that much. But when someone else is like, I'm going to be a CRO, I'm like, shoot, I can't do that. So yeah, I don't think that's in my head.
You said that you got a lot of DMs after you wrote this piece, and that it's still not like quite kind of culturally acceptable to have the kind of path that you or Kevin Kelly has. What was the kind of tenor of those, and why do you think it is not culturally acceptable?
If I were to pick one thing that's not acceptable, it's about like not having one thing that you relentlessly focus on. I think it's cool to be polymathic and have a lot of different interests that funnel into the one thing you're interested in. But I think focus is kind of the name of the game, and drifting is unappealing. I think the prevailing narrative is you want someone with the eye on the ball, who is sort of like blinders up, focused, sprinting on one specific thing. And when you hear about people who bounce around, have their head on the swivel, they seem a little distractible, maybe disloyal, maybe a little immature. So I think there's something about that. I don't know. What do you think?
Part of it is, and I do honestly think that part of this is not like necessarily in your head, but like your lived experience of it. And like, I'll get this too. Like, even if someone asks like what I do, I'm like, I don't know, I like write a newsletter on the internet. Like, I do think that the illegibility makes it harder for other people to talk to you about it, which makes it seem more awkward. But like, sometimes they're like, oh, I wish I could do that, like bouncing around thing. And so like, maybe there's just like a disconnect in the way that we communicate it. I think there's probably also like a real, like, if you don't do this well, then you are like, I think like it's more of like an all in thing. Like, it's fairly easy to like kind of progress if you do this, but like poorly, or like, you're like, I'm writing, but you like kind of write a mediocre essay once every 6 months while you like also start your butterfly collection. And like, it just never goes anywhere. It's just like a higher variance, maybe bigger risk thing. But I think if people do it well, then it can be super fascinating. I mean, Kevin Kelly being kind of a prime example here.
As you're saying this, I'm realizing like, something I believe is true is like your best chance of getting good at something is reps on it. And I don't have any reps on a particular thing. Like maybe writing, but that's kind of broad. So I think it's pretty hard to have like a finger feel or any good instincts around anything if you don't have a lot of reps on it. And it's hard to have a lot of reps on anything if you're doing lots of different kinds of things. Yeah, I don't even know what you would say I'm good at.
Do you have like a figuring it out? Do you have figuring it out reps, or do you have, reps and being able to like kind of sit with things that other people can't? Or there has to be something because you're good at stuff.
Yeah, it's a good question. This is true in my personal life, but people love to tell me things, and I like hearing them. It's probably related. So yeah, I think there's maybe something on that, like a lot of reps on like listening.
This is so funny. We'll come back to the psychoanalysis in a little bit, but to the point on like it being hard to talk to somebody when they have all of this stuff going on, like how do you prepare to meet your hero, Kevin Kelly? Like, what do you even do? Do you reread everything? How do you prepare for this?
Yeah, I reread a lot. I reread a lot. And in fact, I thought that I had read everything that he had written. And when I got to his studio, I realized there was like a ton of stuff I hadn't, which he sent me home with, I thought was pretty sweet. But the other context is I have an infant. My first night away from her was like to go down to Kevin and see him. So I like had my pump and I was like totally out of sorts, but I was like, I gotta do this assignment. Like, I love this man. I can't believe I would get to go to his house. But yeah, what did I do to prepare? I just read a lot of stuff. I did not think I was going to be writing a personal essay at the end of it. I don't know what it is about me, but that is just how it came out on the other side.
It's so good. I don't want to like bring AI into it because like the conversation like very like bores me pretty deeply. But like I think there's one, like the value of the personal story is like, even greater when anybody can write like pretty good stuff. And then two, I think probably like this kind of bouncing and like being comfortable, being interested in a lot of stuff is like probably pretty good as a skill set right now, even if it hasn't felt like that maybe for the past X number of years. I don't know. I like the personal piece. I guess maybe we can just dive into that piece of it. Cause like this essay, as I said, just like it really didn't read like I was expecting the essay to read. I was like, oh, profile on Kevin Kelly. I've read the other Colossus pieces. They're like deep profiles. There's like a million quotes. And then there were a few Kevin Kelly quotes, and it ended up being a lot of like, when in the process did you decide that this was going to be this kind of combination? Was it like while you were at his house, while you were writing?
Through reading all this stuff that he had written and that other people had written, I was like, what am I going to add to this conversation by going down there? But selfishly, I'm like, I'm not going to talk about that until I get there because I want to meet this guy. But I was feeling intimidated by the challenge to add to the conversation about someone who's been working and people have been writing about for decades. And, I had limited time to do this thing. So when I came back, I called Jeremy, who's the editor-in-chief at Colossus. And I was like, just feeling away after, which it ended up coming out in the piece. And I was gabbing about that. And he was like, is this the piece? And not the profile? And I was like, no. Like, absolutely not. That's ridiculous. People are coming for a profile of this guy. And I just couldn't. I had nothing to add.
You did, though, because I don't think I've read a profile that was like less directly about the person, but was like maybe more infused with the person's impact. Because like, as you point out in the piece, there's a lot of people who are creators now because they read 1,000 True Fans, or there are a lot of people who started, health tracking companies because he was early in that movement, or he inspired a lot of people to do things. So the fact that it was about his impact on you was like almost better.
Yeah, that's nice. I didn't think of that. Something cool that happened afterwards, and this is a little bit inside baseball, but I guess that's the point of this.
That's the whole point.
Is that Kevin works with a wonderful assistant who I've gotten to know a little bit through this process named Claudia. And she sort of manages a lot of the meta stuff. And after I wrote the piece, I of course sent it to both of them before it came out. And I got an email a couple of days later from Kevin, and he was like, I don't normally read this stuff after I do the interview because, it's not like he can change it or whatever. But he's like, Claudia insisted that I read this one. I thought that was pretty cool. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. How did that feel?
Oh, I cried immediately.
Yeah.
And then I was like, maybe you should be my dad.
He's like, all right, never mind. Forget that I emailed you.
Yeah, exactly. Also something like sweet in the email. He was like, I never thought of voice activating my train set. So I'm going to do that now. So I'm glad to have inspired Kevin a little bit too.
Yeah, the train set was one of those many vignettes in the piece. So it was just so cool. And the pictures, like the Colossus photography has been amazing. But like, I think this is my favorite set yet. What was it like inside of his house. What was it like showing up there?
This place is wild. Like, whoever's listening should go scroll through the photos because it's so hard to describe. But the way I describe it in a piece, it was like going into my like little brother's dream 90s childhood bedroom. It had Connects and Legos and a train set going around the room and like all of these little specimens in jars and like a huge, maybe like 30, 40-foot wall of books, a terrace. Anyway, it's just a very, very, very cool spot. And I'm going to tell you a really cool story about the photographer because this was awesome. So one of Kevin's things is that he spent a lot of time in China. This is another thing that he's sort of ushered into culture as like a respect for what's going on over there. He currently leads trips for people to go and check it out. And the photographer that we brought on also had done a lot of photography in China in a past life. And when she was on site, they kind of got talking about this. And she realized that Kevin and the whole crew had seen her book of photos on China from like a past life. So that was a really cool connection.
What was the whole day like? How long were you there? Because in the piece, like I think again, like one of the cool things about the structure of this is I was like, all right, like we're halfway through, and then it like almost ended. I was like, she had a whole day. Like, where'd all the quotes go? How long were you there? How long did you interview him for?
Yeah, I was probably there for about 3 hours, maybe a little more. And some of it was just walking around the room. I've never done anything like this before. I'm not like a journalist like that. I like forgot to start the recorder when we were just like walking.
I've done that.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like such a noob. And I was also like totally starstruck by this guy. But we started off kind of doing like a tour of the space. And it wasn't a tour like, let me show you this. Like I was just curious and I was picking out things from the bookshelves and asking him what things were, and he was showing off other things and telling stories about them. So we spent a good amount of time on that. And then we chatted for probably 90 minutes. And then I kind of sat around and walked in Pacifica where he lives. But I'm trying to think like the Hacker News comments, which are Hacker News comments, were all like, where's Kevin? Which is like totally fair critique. You know, he dropped like so much wisdom. And there for sure could have been like a full thing on that. But yeah, I think the most interesting stuff was what was in my head after.
I like would never in a million years have thought to write the piece this way. And I'm so happy that you did write it this way. What are some of the pieces of wisdom that like were left on the cutting room floor, or things that if you had written a traditional profile, you would have included?
Yeah, we talked a lot about like the psychology of somebody that bounces around, or the way he calls us his working Hollywood style in a series of projects. And I kept trying to scratch at like, don't you feel bad about this sometimes? Like, isn't it weird that you don't have a magnum opus? And it didn't bother him. Like he had no self-consciousness about that whatsoever. So I was like, the reason I had such a strong reaction to the day is because my questions were kind of bouncing off him.
It felt like that came across in the piece too.
Like I was like, what about people who say you have shiny object syndrome? And he was like, yeah, great, go for it.
Was it a friendly bounce off? Was it did you have to like kind of pull stuff out of him? I was wondering that as I was reading it.
No, he's an incredibly like congenial, generous person. And I think actually so generous that he says yes to a lot. He's been on many podcasts. He's been the subject of many profiles. I think he just generically says yes so that he can get his ideas out. So I don't think he was particularly interested in like me or Colossus or our audience. But I think he was being extremely generous with his ideas and sort of unfettered with his thoughts. Yeah, this wasn't like the biggest exciting thing happening to him that day, probably.
Did you get a sense of like how his day is structured? Like, if he doesn't say yes to something, what's he doing when he wakes up in the morning?
I cannot tell you. I think one of like a bajillion things, which I guess is his thing. But if you read the piece, you'll see the photo of him. He's wearing like paint-stained pants that are like genuinely paint-stained. He built with his own hands the studio that we were working in. So I think he does stuff like that. I think he like voice activates his model train. I think he talks with the Long Now crew. Like I think he has very diverse days. I think probably no 2 days are the same. I think he spends time with his family. I think he goes for walks. And who knows? Tinkers.
Did you get a sense that he has like a spiritual or meditation practice, either in the reading or the preparation? Because it feels like a lot of what like all of that tells you to do is to like be happy in what you're doing. And he like actually lives it.
Yeah. Speaking of being a bad journalist. If I were going to write a true profile on him, the thread that I would have wanted to pull more is like about his family life and his spiritual life. I know from reading about him that he's born again Christian, but I don't know anything about the story behind that. So I think he must have, and he wrote an article on it that one could read about a little bit about that. But I think that would have been a thread that I pulled if I was really trying to play journalist. But yeah, I was asking him a lot about his psychology of the way he does this thing. And it doesn't seem like he is kind of self-reflective in the way that we think of being self-reflective, like replaying your own like thoughts and actions and kind of like trying to like push them into the right direction or optimize them in some way. He didn't really have that anxious or tenuous of a relationship to his inner world.
Sounds kind of lovely to be Kevin Kelly. I loved the quote you mentioned. Hollywood, we don't make movies to make money. We make money to make more movies. And it's like something I've been thinking about a lot recently. Like if you hit the lottery, or if like, one of our venture investments like really pays off and I was like endlessly wealthy, like do you picture yourself on the beach, or do you picture yourself like, I would just like, I'd invest a lot more probably without having to fundraise ever, and like do a better job and like not boring out more. It feels like one of the better definitions of life's work that I've seen was just like in that one quote is really like, when you think about like making money, what does it make you want to do?
It's a great quote, and there's a lot of meaning imbued there. One of the most thoughtful responses that came in my inbox was, can you act this way and not be rich? Is it possible? Like, how do you just not have a job and just like go where the wind blows you? Like, how does that work? And I thought it was a good question. Again, if I was playing journalist, especially for Colossus's audience, I would have tried to figure out like what this guy's net worth is. I have no idea. And it's not like if he was a billionaire, he would be living in some like castle somewhere. Like the space felt very authentic to him. I have no idea how much he donates to charity. I cannot map that. But I think it's like an interesting question.
I think there's probably, with kind of like we were talking about before, if you're really good at doing this particular thing, you could make it work. If you're really interesting, you could have like almost $0 to your name and you'd be invited to enough places and like be given food, and you get to work with Jeff Bezos on projects and like you're probably fine. So I guess, what is your sense on whether money is a prerequisite to living like this?
I think that Kevin would say, because he has before, that you actually need relatively little to live. He said he taught himself this by going biking around Asia, like with no belongings. He was able to learn like exactly how little he could live with. Like you don't need to buy that much food. Like you can get your calories from like a few things. And that was sort of like a formative concept for him. So yeah, I think it just depends how you want to live your life. And he clearly doesn't want to maximize every dollar. That's not important to him. But I think that is motivating to some. And I don't think that's crazy at all.
No, me neither. How has your life changed? Like, so you've left the house, written the piece. Like, has your life changed in any like real way, or the way that you think about yourself, or any of this changed in any real way since your very good day with Kevin Kelly?
Yeah, it's a good question. One of them is this is part of writing. You probably have this too. When you like kind of go out with a philosophy, you're kind of like agreeing to live by it.
Yeah, 100%.
I said a quiet thing in me out loud that I'm a little bit embarrassed about and kind of shy about. And now I feel a responsibility to myself to try to keep acting in that direction. So I get caught all the time. Someone's like, ooh, come do this like fancy thing. And I don't want to, but it seems statusy or like impactful, but it doesn't seem fun. And I'm always, especially now, trying to be like, wait, do I actually want to do this? Or is some other icky part of me saying yes? So I think I'm a little bit more in tune to that in the moment. I hope I can keep that around, because it's Yeah, it's really happy making.
You have a job, like a cool job. Like how do you balance those two?
I'm so happy to say this on the record that Patrick O'Shaughnessy is the best boss on this planet to someone like me, because he gives me so much freedom. And I don't think to him, it doesn't feel like a sacrifice to give me space to pick up all these random things. He does see it in service of the firm. I also see it in service of the firm. But I think a very reasonable boss could be like, you're all over the map, lady. Like, what are you doing over here? So I think that's part of the answer, is that actually everything that I want to naturally do, we find a way to like make it part of in service of the firm.
I was actually having this conversation with somebody that it's disappointing, like literally this morning, that it's disappointing that more venture firms don't take advantage of this like beautiful spot that they're in, where like there isn't really, as far as I'm concerned, certainly in the way that I do it, and it seems like the way that Positive Sum does it, like there isn't really a like you do this and then like you do this and then you get a good return. Like you have to actually put a bunch of interesting stuff out into the universe and attract interesting people to you. So it's like almost the perfect type of role, the media and investing kind of intersection for this kind of Flounder Mode to actually be productive.
I think so. You have to be able to trust your people to be prolific. I think maybe if I didn't have a proven track record of that, it would be harder to bring someone like me on board and just trust that like I'll find stuff to do. And the other thing is, I think it takes an incredible amount of confidence as a leader to sort of let your people just do their things. I try to do this because I like process. I'm like, don't we want to see what everyone's working on this week? He's like, I don't want to see that thing. It seems boring.
Yes.
And I'm like, what? But it's great. It's a really good leadership style if your job is to be interesting and attract interesting people. What's your team like, Packy? I don't even know.
My team is I have me, which is the only full-time person on the team. I work with two guys who live in India named Aman and Sahaj, who are doing like literally, it's like very similar. Not similar to your work, similar kind of like conceptually, where it's like you guys are both smart. You mentioned Talakawa and like emergent ventures grant recipients, and like both smart, both passionate. We're interested in a lot of the same things. And there is not at all like all right, so today you're doing this thing. We started a podcast that was like pulling stuff from Polymarket and using AI to like, record my voice talking about this stuff. Like that was one project. They're looking into kind of, no spoilers, but just kind of like what the early stage kind of like philanthropic landscape in frontier tech looks like, or like how you'd build more of a research arm on some of this undercover stuff. Like completely like very little direction from me on this stuff, but a lot of stuff that we're like kind of aligned on the idea that if some of this stuff like kind of works, we're going to meet a lot of really interesting people. We're going to learn a lot of really interesting things. And like, if that, leads to one great investment or like one great essay, then like the whole thing is kind of worth it. And so I am like very philosophically aligned with that way of working. I
know a little bit about your work background, but what do you think makes you good at working this way?
It's a very good question. I don't know if I am either. I think like probably everybody who works this way is like a little bit insecure about it, because I again like see what you all are doing and see what some other folks kind of in this space are doing, and I'm like, I should be doing a lot more stuff. Huh? Like I really like I should be upping my game. I don't know. I mean, like I started in finance, so like that doesn't do anything. I then worked at a startup, and I was like a general manager and a VP of like literally like operations. Essentially was the title. So like both very like this kind of thing. I think seeing now, one, I think I just have like I am just like naturally pretty optimistic, and so I have like a very like, I don't know, it'll work out. And like, if it doesn't, we'll like figure something else out, kind of attitude. I have 2 kids and a wife now, so I can't like fully just be like, I'm going to blow it all up and it'll be fine, because now I have, people that I'm responsible for. But like in my mind, there's never really a like, oh no, if this like particular thing doesn't work, then it's all over. And so I think that's comforting. And then it has like, been like total ups and downs in this process over the past 5 years, but like it has, I get to write about and learn about the things that I'm interested in and talk to really smart people all the time. And like generally the whole thing has kind of worked and grown and gone really well. And, I feel like I'm getting better at a lot of the things that I do. So like part of it is to trust our friend, to quote our friend Sam Hickey, trust the process. And I think like that is true. And I guess finally there's the like, I am literally doing the thing that if I, like to the movie quote, like I'm doing the thing that if I had all of the money, I would be doing. And so like, don't like overcomplicate that and like ruin it by being, by overthinking the fact that like, this is exactly what I want to be doing. So I think it's like some combination of all of those things.
Yeah. You know what, as you're saying this, I'm realizing that something that we have in common is like, maybe uncomfortable doing nothing.
Yeah.
I think I heard you on a podcast a long time ago talking about that head of operations job. And that was like a crazy job, right?
Crazy. I was like literally cleaning little office spaces, doing a million different things.
I've done those kinds of jobs, or like I find myself doing those kinds of things a lot. And I actually wonder if you're too like thinker-y and you don't like doing stuff and you try to be this like float around kind of person, it doesn't work because you never produce anything. So I think there's something into like, gotta have output.
I think I've never thought about it that way, but I think it's so true. We were just in Italy for my brother's wedding and actually a friend's wedding before that. And at the very end, we spent like 3 days on this little island called Elba. And it's just like you're sitting on a beach. And by the third day, I was like, I'm so happy we ended the trip with this because I like want to get back to my little tiny office and like just start doing something. Like I love my family, I love hanging out, but like the beach in particular is just too on the nose. And I'm like, I need to go do something. So yes, there is that drive there.
Yeah, like a can't sit still kind of thing. Because I think I know the other version of this. That's like, yeah, just kind of curious. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think maybe this is what you're like, maybe it doesn't like work in this way. It's not tied to as much output. And I think that was a lesson from Kevin too. He says like my interpretation of what Kevin does is he turns a lot of his interest into outputs. He like thinks about something and he writes a book, or he like thinks a place is cool. He invites other people to that place. Things happen as a result of his interests. He doesn't just gobble them up and sit on them.
Yeah. I just did the Michael Barbaro thing by accident, which I didn't mean to, but yeah, I've not thought about it like that, but it's such a good point.
Another thing that was resonating as you were speaking is sort of like how this stuff ebbs and flows. And sometimes it's just it's in a quiet period. And I think doing this for long enough, now I have more confidence that it will come back. I think I used to freak out a little bit. Like, there's nothing happening. There's no projects. Nobody cares about me or what I do. And now it's sort of, I've learned that it cycles through. Like this particular moment, I call it like magnet on. The magnet is on. Like people are interested and circling around. And in a few months, it will be less like that. And now I don't panic as much.
That's interesting. I have not gotten I've gotten more comfortable maybe with the, like if I'm feeling stuck writing wise, that I'll like figure out something that interests me and write about it. But the magnet on, magnet off is such a good way of putting it. Cause there are times that I've written about this before too. I've been open about it. There are times where you're like, shit, it's like over. I like people totally liked what I did for a while and now they don't anymore and they've moved on. And so magnet on, magnet off is something I'm going to steal from you.
Yeah. It's sad that you can't control it. Like you think you can work harder into it, or like, oh, I'm going to chase the hot company with the big name. It doesn't work.
Why do you think that? What do you think is happening in the magnet on, magnet off phase?
I used to joke that like some WhatsApp group mentioned my name and like, that's it. I don't know. But I think if you write or like you're on the internet for long enough, you realize like actually what's going on is mostly private to you. Like the likes don't really matter and the open rate doesn't really matter. Like something else happened somewhere, and like you learn about a disturbance in the force. I'm like, I don't know. I just got a bunch of new followers today. Don't know where they came from. I can't make sense of it, but like something happened somewhere. I'll never know.
Yeah. And I think there's probably also something like at some point people stop. They're not going to share your stuff for like the fourth time in a row.
Yeah.
And so like
that's a good
people get kind of like sick of you. Yeah. And then they're like, all right, cool. I remember that guy. Like that was fun. Let me try again. And so maybe there's something like that. You do. I went deep on your website, and you have a great collection of notes to self. And so if we're getting magnet on, magnet off, I want to throw some other ones out into the universe. I'm going to ask you about a few of them, what they mean to you, and then like whether there's like a story behind each one that either it brings to mind or where it came from. So the first one is pretty obvious, but I'm sure you've had cool examples of this, which is a small group cranking is bliss.
Oh, that's nice. I thought you were going to say one that's like always leave the bachelorette early. Like what's your bachelorette story? Is nothing interesting. A small group cranking is bliss. The early days on Stripe Press were amazing. We had no idea what we were doing. We literally spent like a week, like just like touching different paper. We're like, what even goes in a book? Like we were such noobs, but it was so fun. It was so fun. Early days, Stripe account management were really fun. Stripe was in a period of like pretty serious instability with the API, and we were just getting crushed. Even during it, someone was like, you're going to look back on this and think it was great, even though we like literally could never go home from the office. And now when I think back to it, I just think like, wow, what a like true team moment. What a true team moment.
I thought your essay on working at Stripe and like some of those hard times was one of my favorite things that I've read, because it walked the line between like hustle culture and like not glorifying it, but being like, it's kind of awesome when like this stuff inevitably happens. And I think people like go too far in either direction on that. And I thought you walked that line.
You're a runner,
really
right?
well. Yeah.
Did you like do cross country or?
Yeah, in high school.
Yeah, I
almost in college, but I was going to be like the worst walk on, and it wasn't worth giving up my life for.
Yeah, no fun. I played soccer in college, and I grew up like soccer was the whole thing, and this is mostly what I got from sports. Like it's like really painful to sprint. Like I threw up a lot. Like I like sat in the ice bath like a lot. It really hurts, and it's like the only way to like be really good. And when I finished playing soccer in college, I like had this scary feeling like, am I ever going to be good at anything again? Because I'd put so many hours into the singular focus, to this one specific thing. It was like 2 soccer practices a day, like, it was a lot. And I was like, I might not be good at anything ever again, because who has the time to like do stuff like this? But I think that instilled on me like the hard work, it like mostly hurts.
But it's awesome, yeah.
Yeah.
On the Stripe Press one, I'm going deeper on this than I wanted to, like having to feel the papers and like learn the whole thing. Like, because it's not like you did it and like you were able to put out some books that were like kind of interesting. Like Stripe Press is known now for the choices of, how nice the paper is and how nice the books look and the hardcover and the selection itself. Do you think having to learn all of that from scratch was, with resources though, I guess, was helpful?
Yeah, I mean, Stripe is like a very first principles place. It's not like we were like aspiring to like copy HarperCollins or something. So we like knew we were going to do it our own way. 2, I mean, Stripe has an incredible design team. Like one of the reasons it worked is because the books are so beautiful. And there's not a single designer at Stripe who can produce something that's not beautiful. So if we were going to do it, it was going to be beautiful. And then the third thing is, I will say this a million times, and I say it on a million phone calls when people call me because they want to stand up their version of Stripe Press at their company. It takes a ridiculous person to fund this kind of activity. It takes a ridiculous person to fund it with time and with dollars. Like it's not cheap to make those books. Stripe is a payments company. But the idea that like leadership would fund that kind of effort, like a week of touching paper, like most people don't fund that stuff. And I think it takes like a very rare commitment to craft. Like that's commitment to craft, like giving up like a great designer's time to a week of touching paper. And I think most leaders just don't want to do that. And that's very reasonable because there's shit to do.
It is reasonable, but it's also like not. Like I think maybe one of the points of this essay to me is like that it's not, and that like maybe Flounder Mode is actually like long term, and again with like the right caveats that you need to do something and all of that, but like long term maybe actually more productive. Like if you're just running, like, I was having lunch with somebody today and talking about how like what percentage of jobs out there we think are just like in like good companies or like complete bullshit jobs that like just like would be totally fine if they went away. So taking really talented people and saying like go explore, actually like it's not trackable maybe, but it's like probably pretty high ROI. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think there's something very true about that, especially for like people who are in craft type roles. And I think you can argue that like most roles should be craft roles, but it's funny. I was just catching up with my friend who's at Vercel, and they just had their big conference. And like one of the things that the design team is really proud of was this like graphic of like sort of water flowing, and same kind of thing. It like took the design team, like two of the most important designers of the company, like a month to get this like flowing water thing right. And like, is that the best use of time to like get the flowy graphic right for the background of the talk? Like, I think if you're the board, maybe you're like, I don't think so. But I think if you're like a leader that's trying to like have the best talent, and you have people that only work because they want to see their best and like learn and push their limits and try things, if you tell them like, no, sorry, just like put any old graphic up, that's not very inspiring or motivating.
I mean, we have hundreds of listeners to of the Hyperlegible podcast now, and now we're talking about Vercel. Like I don't know how you track this, and it's probably more beautiful that you can't. But like I wrote about the new Stripe podcast that John's doing, and the Robinhood presentation, and like just doing things different. I think is like, even if you're just looking at like press mentions or like people talking about, like I do think this thing is worth it. And I wish that more people would spend more time on the water graphic or Stripe press or making it, their own set design, and like doing something different that you like really care about.
I think what's tricky about getting this right is that it's like, it has to be emergent. Like, I don't think G at Vercel was like, hey, someone make a super cool graphic that looks like water. It was just probably a couple people tinkering and were like, what would be sick? And now I can't sleep unless I do this. And then everyone being like, okay, do it. But it kind of has to like bubble up from the place inside you. It can't really come from planning.
I'm so happy right now because there's a Kevin Kelly essay on Scenius where he like literally talks about this idea in a different context, where he's like, because I for a while was like, how do you create Scenius? And his whole thing is like, you can't.
Yeah.
But as soon as you see it happening, you just like get out of the way, you protect it, you make sure to not put it in the boardroom. Like, don't try to create it, but like then do whatever you can to protect that flame.
What's another like weird example of this kind of quality? How like in sports or like in Jeopardy, like all of a sudden someone will come around and just be like insanely dominant by doing it. And I think it's just like, you just can't create that. Like someone needs to just try something else. But if you're being trained in the discipline of the thing and you're doing all the things the other trainers do, you can get like maybe incrementally better. But someone's just got to come from the side and like be whack. And you can't tell someone to be whack. They just have to be like that.
Isn't it amazing that you just say the word Jeopardy? Like everybody just is picturing Ken Jennings right now to like answer a bunch of questions on a TV show for a while and captivate the nation. It's so cool.
But it was like, how come all of a sudden this guy is like so much better than everybody else? It doesn't make sense. Or like another one is who's that like UFC Ronda Rousey? It's just like sometimes people will just come out of nowhere and just dominate. And I'm always so curious about how and why that happens. And I think it's just like one crazy person.
After your next book, this could be the book. This would actually be a really fascinating book. I would read that.
Yeah, I wonder how many other examples I can think of. But I do always try. I'm like, they catch my attention because I'm like, how did this happen? Like, I think someone's running the mile now. A woman's trying to break the 4-minute mile. And did she just like run like 6 seconds faster than the world record or something out of nowhere? Like, you don't have 6-second jumps. Like, how does this happen? She used to like run barefoot. Anyway, I just am always curious about like how do you come out of nowhere and become dominant? I want you to write this book because I want to read this book. Okay, maybe it's related, maybe it's not. The deeper you go, the better it gets. Oh yeah. This one I love. This is kind of another Stripeism. There's like a quote we love at Stripe that artists don't talk about line and form, they talk about turpentine. And we always like the turpentine stuff because it's like, that's where it's real. Like anyone can read the Wikipedia article. It's like the opposite of the Pareto, like 80-20 principle. It's like not everyone gets access to like the deep stuff. So it's just like a privilege to be there. There's There's a New Yorker cartoon I think that I love. It's like, if you want to ruin someone's life, teach them about kerning. And yeah, that happened to me from working at Stripe. I like all of a sudden learned about all these design principles. And now like every time I look at a menu at a restaurant, I'm like, yeah, it's like, it's not centered or whatever. And I'm just reminded how much fun that is to like understand the details of things. And yeah. Do you have a story for that one? I'm curious why, if it resonates.
All I do is go deep. It's interesting because I go deep on companies and then I like, I'll do like fusion and then I'll be like, oh, we're over here doing like, mining. And so it's like a lot of going deep, but not going deep over a sustained period of time. So we did this podcast, Age of Miracles, where we like spent, me and Julia DeWall spent a long time talking to a lot of people to understand kind of fission and fusion. And then I wrote about a company called Fuse that we invested in that is amazing. And I was writing that piece. And there were a few times during that piece where I was like, oh, holy shit. Like actually like, X, Y, or Z thing that I never, ever in a million years would have understood. And it's going to add like 1% quality to this piece. But like, I am so happy that I've built up the thing to like understand that, you're selling radiation because, you create radiation before you get to Q greater than 1. And like, I've always thought that Q greater than 1 was just this like barrier that you need to get across. But like, actually, like you're still creating radiation that's valuable. And like, so there are like little things like that happen if you spend enough time where like things just kind of click. And there's like nothing more fun writing than that happening. Or I think even just reading. And I just got ripped on the internet the other day for making a joke about, that you can summarize 100 books with ChatGPT. And so I went back and read a post that I wrote on reading more books. And there's something that happens too when you like read within a category where you'll like see the same names pop up or something. And you're like, whoa, that person was also in that story.
Yeah, that's a great example.
And I think that kind of stuff is really fun and like rewards you for going deep.
What's that John Muir quote? It's like something about everything is related. That becomes more clear once you're actually in it.
Yeah, I'll think of other examples because I like that too. Each of your bits of wisdom could be their own book.
People really write me about them. I probably get like one email a week about something in there. I highly encourage people to do like an invitation to email at the end of their personal website because I really do get fun stuff in my inbox.
Well, I don't know if you were in my inbox here or in my Google Docs, but my next one is email the people you admire and tell them that. It'll make their day and it'll make yours when they write back.
It's funny because you mentioned Sam Hinkie earlier, and after I wrote the piece and a bunch of conversations with people, I was just asking like, do you know anyone who's like this and not self-conscious about it? And Sam came up a bunch, and I wrote to him to tell him that it's like almost everything everybody writes to each other is like a request, like for time or attention or money or something. It's like, you probably get this a lot because people read your pieces. Like, it's so nice when someone just emails you, like just saying hi and being nice.
Totally. I think people overestimate how often people get those and how much it means to get those for sure. There is something like, I'll try to do this. Like if I think of it, I'll like, listen to Patrick went on like a run with a bunch of podcasts last year, including the guy who started the restaurants whose name I'm blanking on now. But I just like texted him like saying it. And it does feels like it's like almost vulnerable, weird, like texting somebody out of the blue to say that you like appreciate the thing that they've done recently. So I understand why it's like hard to do.
Yeah,
I don't know if it feels that way to you.
Because it feels like brown nosy or something.
Yeah.
When you write those emails, are they like dense?
No, not particularly dense. It's like, and I'll try to do it over text, often, or if I don't know the person, then I'll do it over email. But I try not to go dense. I try to like keep it short. It's just like and I think that's why the third sentence really got me in this one, which is like, it'll feel so good when they write back. Cause then it's like totally fine, but it does feel brown nosy. You're like, you're just putting yourself out there and you imagine them getting a lot more of this. And so on the other side, you're like, oh, another person. And even like, if it's someone in a totally different field, that's like a different thing. But if it's like another writer or another, like I don't, there's like something about it. And this is the thing that I'm like worst at in the world, I would say, is like that kind of stuff. So maybe I'm just like particularly bad at it. But yeah, for me, it always feels like a bit vulnerable doing it.
Not to give you homework, but I wonder what it would be like to do an experiment for like a month of being really good at it. If you're truly like just excited about like connecting with cool people, which I know you are, I wonder like what it would bring back to you.
I'll try to do it. I mean, like the big unlock, I think, like maybe one of the biggest unlocks in the world for people is like realizing that like even if your worst case fear on this comes true and the other person's like, why did you text me?
Yeah.
2 seconds later, that's gone, and they've like totally forgotten and moved on from that text. So it's a good prompt.
When you like have a piece that you're like, that one hit, what do you think you're reacting to? Is it like a dashboard? Is it like stuff in your inbox? How do you interpret resonance?
Yeah, like my goal for stuff is like, I actually don't care. Like if I had a fifth as many subscribers, like, or less, I like actually don't care anymore. And I did for a while, but now it's like, if people that I respect or, respect on the particular topic that I'm writing on, write back or share it and say like, this is, I wrote a series on like vertically integrated companies that when people who are like building that are like, yes, like this is like what we're going for. So it's like kind of resonance with people who I want to resonate with that particular piece more than like everybody in the world is talking about, because nobody's going to, talk about vertically integrated startups. Like that's just not going to go like super viral. But if people who are like doing that thing are like, yes, like that actually makes a lot of sense. That's kind of what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that a lot.
I'm going to do the last one of these, and I love this one. Earnestness over snark.
Yeah. What's the story related to this one? I think I used to be way snarkier and like way more hole pokey. I think there's like a mythology in my head that like smart people like see all the flaws, and it's just, who wants that person in the meeting? It's like so much more fun to like join the club and like be a believer and like root for people, and that's not like quite the definition of earnestness, but like if you do that and you like believe it and take other people seriously, and it just feels better. It just feels better. Why did that one call to you?
I mean, I just, like the pessimist sounds smart, optimists make money is one of my favorite quotes. But I've also been reading, and I go through like this phase every like few months, but David Foster Wallace again. And I think he does like such a great job kind of talking about this. I just read, and this is like a high recommendation for people generally. McNally Press published just one of the essays that was going to go in the Pale King called Something to Do with Paying Attention. And it's just like, it's so beautiful. He like talks about himself as like this wastoid kid who doesn't like care about, not him, but like the character doesn't care about anything. And then like starts to like really believe that like accounting is his calling, and like has this like earnest speech from this Jesuit substitute accounting professor. And it's just like beautiful. Like you're like, oh, cool. Like you can take anything seriously. And if you like actually are drawn to that thing, that's awesome. And like, so seeing the change from like the snarky kid to like this guy who's taking this thing that a lot of people find boring, very seriously is cool to see.
Yeah, totally. It's like when you think of like a teenager being like, I don't care. That's like the lamest way to be. But like maybe it seems cool at the beginning because like nothing's good enough for you, but it's like a way richer life if like a lot of things are good enough for you.
There's, I feel the same way. One of my best friends in high school, was like a film critic-y kind of guy. And so we'd go to like, some superhero movie and he'd be picking it apart. And I was like, I don't know, that seemed like pretty fun. And I had way more fun at the movie than he did because I like enjoy any dumb thing. I would say I like maybe don't have taste. I don't like, and like there's something nice about being like, I enjoy that. But it's funny that, I don't care, whatever. In this book, I thought one of the most like the coolest things that he did was he contrasts him as like the like teenager saying like whatever to everything, and like he brings up the whatever over and over again, and then he contrasts that with the way that his dad, who just had a wife and a kid and how to like get things done, contrasted with how he said whatever, which is like, I have to do this thing, I don't like it, whatever, and I'm just gonna go do it. He's just so good at writing, but like that contrasting whatever I thought was beautiful.
Yeah, I hate that word, whatever.
Amen.
Yeah, to take you to a good place.
No, unless you do it in the chin up, whatever, I got to get this done
fair.
kind of way.
Fair.
All right. So my last three, this should be either easy or hard. Might be somewhere in between. But if there's one essay that you want people to read of yours, what would it be?
I think probably Notes on Taste. I think that defines the way I try to live the most, and like the thing that's been the most rewarding.
Yeah, everyone, if you have not read Notes on Taste, if you're one of the 7 people on the internet who has not, go read that. What is one essay, and this can be like any written thing, because I asked this to Mario Gabriele and Gabrielli, and he said that he doesn't actually like essays. So like, what's one thing that someone else wrote that you think more people should read?
Nadia's essay on Basic as a Virtue. Have you ever read it?
Oh, yes, a while back, but I need to reread it.
It's like OG, and she's been top of mind because she just wrote that awesome book on antimimetics. Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And I think there's like an attention, I'm probably gonna have to write an essay on this. But her section on attention, and when she talked to Jackson about it on Dialectic, I don't know if you listen to it.
Yeah.
But as this thing that like, that is like a positive thing that you can like put towards good stuff that you like, it was such a beautiful reframing of the thing that is now kind of like, don't let Twitter steal your attention. Like, I thought that was brilliant.
She's one of the best writers and thinkers I'm aware of, or like at least her stuff really speaks to me. And she's always like a half a decade ahead of where I'm. Because I remember when I first read Basic as a Virtue, I'm like, I'm not going to be a Marina girl and go to Blue Barn every day. And then 5 years later, I was like, well, why not? It's the nicest way to live. Anyway, that one too, I like. That one also has changed the way I think a lot.
Cool. That's a great recommendation. Yeah. And then the last one, if you could implant a 1-sentence takeaway and everybody listening to this is brain, what would it be?
Have fun.
Brie, that is an awesome place to end this. This was even more fun than I expected. Thank you so much for doing it.
Thanks, Mackie.